Today is pretty much trying to elaborate on the book, on the questions that the book puts, on the hypotheses that the book brings, and the problems to philosophy that it elaborates with anime. When we read about the concept of the crypt, like in the elaborations of like cinema and animated cinema and the crypt, it's not the ghost of an illusion. The crypt that I'm trying to elaborate on the book with the compositions of anime, it's something else. It is maybe the death image. It is something in between, in the circle of life, in between being a caterpillar and a bird, that we cannot really hold, but we can talk about. Being in a world that you are human, but that you are not very safe because you are human. You have to elaborate on another possibility of life constantly, because death is there, because death is going to happen. Death that is not destruction, but another assemblage, and something else that can be elaborated, that can be produced. Production of production, not as a lab, but as a constant production. So you have to go inside of the sea, grab whatever is possible when you go to the sea, and come up with something else, with a new thought. I mean, the brain plunges into this water and goes out as mind, but is as brain, is still brain. Deleuze Guattari, you're gonna say, brain comes out of chaos. Brain, it's not thought and mind, it's brain, and the brain is mind and mind is brain. In a certain way, vitalism is important there, and I know it's very criticized, but I think vitalism is important because it's a possibility of autopoiesis that doesn't depend on the symbolic to exist. So if we get on Lacan, poiesis to exist needs a relationship with language, with a culture. And what Deleuze Guattari are proposing is that art didn't wait for a human to exist. The world is producing art constantly, and art is the production of thought. I think that's what psychoanalysis should be interested in. It's not about the master signifier. It's not about the name of the father. It's about difference. It's about something new. It's about poverty. New words. Deleuze and Guattari, they propose that we should make concepts. We should be constantly producing concepts. There's also this moment in 97 that happens in Japan, that is the Pokemon episode, in which Porygon crosses the realm. A little more than 600 kids had epileptic shocks. So there's a confrontation between narrative, between image and the body, and I'm pretty much interested in what comes there. This is an image from the Porygon episode. People are going to say, flickering blue and red made the convulsive attacks. We don't really know. Thomas Lamarre is going to say that it's a matter of milieu. Deleuze and Guattari in third. I think it's a matter of unconscious. I think there is something there that says about this Mobius strip between outside and inside of the body that we are constantly in struggle with. We should operate with another concept from Deleuze and Guattari, that is the concept of aseity. So that is a materiality of the things there, of the history of the episode, of the energy of the television that comes out of it, of the fabric of the clothes that the kids were wearing as well. This aseity is an episodic thing that's going to change the composition of the body. And we have this Porygon, we have this meeting between image and body that provokes an effect of the body reacting to it. So we have this confrontation, this perspectivist crash. Another elaboration of the book is this episode from Evangelion. And it's an episode that something similar to what happened to the kids in the Porygon attack happens to one of the pilots. It's Asuka. She's in a very difficult state in her life there, being the pilot of EVA Unit 2. She's kind of losing synchronization. That's something that the anime is even going to use the terms of psychoanalysis, that is catexia. So that is the possession, so the occupation of the libido. What's very interesting that the anime really uses the Freudian word. So she's losing her possibility of piloting the Eva, because the Eva is connected to your unconscious. And then she goes to fight against this angel. Those angels are in a war against humanity. This particular attack is an attack of light against the body of Asuka that is inside of the robot. It's an attack on her mind, pretty much, but it is an attack that she refuses to withdraw from. So they are in a war. All the commanders tell Asuka, you should leave, you should eject, and she refuses. And it's very important that, I think, because it is a meeting between species, between the human pilot and the angel that is trying to understand the way that she thinks. Evangelion is a very neurotic narrative. It's a narrative about being what is lacking to the big other, and then you have to pilot to effectively produce what science wants from humankind. That will be the Human Instrumentality Project. So you get the main character that is very much attached to his mother and father and doesn't know what to do. And then you get this other character that is Asuka, that is, you could even say that is a more hysterical character than Shinji, that is very obsessive. And when she refuses to withdraw from the attack, and she stays under the light of the angel, she's making a new alliance. An alliance that is going to make humankind lose the war. Because in the end, the human scientific project is going to lose. The complementarity is not going to happen. What is going to happen is the rebuild of the world. So the Evangelions that are made to make everybody a god, everybody doesn't have a lack anymore, everybody is going to do one body, it's going to produce a one. I think it's because of Asuka that maybe they lose this war. And then in the end, Shinji is going to accept to just rebuild the world and redo it again and redo it again. So pretty much I see the concept of the war machine as the symbolic. And the ultimate symbolic thing in Evangelion is science. It's the production of those robots that are capable of creating that, pretty much. Another film that I wanted to show you is the third anime that I studied, that is Devilman Crybaby. It's an anime by Yuasa Masaki. It is a very famous manga from the 70s in Japan. They already had an anime in the 80s, and they also had OVAs in the 90s of Devilman, but they never did something very artful as the manga is. It's a very beautiful manga that never had a very good anime adaptation. I think those OVAs are very bloody, but they're never really good as the one from 2018. In the manga, there's a different story than the story that is proposed in the anime, because the anime Lucifer, that is the friend of the main character that becomes Devilman, and they are at war again, a war against humanity and the demons. Lucifer was raised in an Amerindian tribe. Lucifer is going to say that humans built weapons to have their wars. And the weapons that the demons built are fusions. So bodies are going to connect to one another. Bodies are going to merge so you can set up the war and humankind can lose to demons. The problem of Devilman, and I think it's very brutal, is because even though Lucifer can destroy Devilman, and that's a very troublesome thing, even for Lucifer, there is always God, and God is going to reset the world, so the demons are never going to be able to win. When I was seeing the anime, I was very disturbed by this connection with Eduardo Village Castro. I was like, really? Why is this director changing the manga and putting the demon to be raised by Amerindians? Is the director not about like Amerindian perspectivism? Are we talking about multinaturalism when we find bodies against bodies turning into something else? Are we really dealing with those kind of chaosophy way of elaborating a narrative? And then I was searching, and that's a very interesting part of like being a researcher in cinema and philosophy. I was looking to the other films that Masaki did, and he's always like trying to elaborate on this possibilities of bodies, crazy worlds, people being several stuff at the same time. Libido and sex are very important the whole time. If we think of Guattari, and especially the notions of the ecology, and thinking ecology instead of the symbolic, we should try to operate not exclusively with Freud, but we should operate with Ferenczi. I think the concept of the thalassa that Ferenczi proposes when he's trying to think about the origins of genitality. So how you're going to be a being that is going to have sex in order to reproduce. I think there's a proposition of this unconscious that you cannot really locate that is much more intriguing and I think interesting for us to elaborate the clinic and how to listen to people and how to receive people in your practice, or how to write with psychoanalysis. That is an unconscious that is not locatable, but that it is there. I went to see the episode from Adventure Time that the director did. And it's an episode that is called Food Chain. I think it's the most important part of the book because it's the thesis of the book. Instead of elaborating on the unconscious with the signifier chain, as we get with Lacan, how can we operate with another chain that is also capable of clinical treatment of the unconscious? Can we think the unconscious that is not structured as language, as Lacan proposes? So instead of the signifier chain, I think we should operate with the food chain that is fusions and Atalassian, so the Ferencian concept of this kept memory of the evolution of the species. So instead of us elaborating castration as alienation in language or in culture, I think we should elaborate on another type of castration that means that we left the water to be walking beings. The village culture is going to say that we have to be precautious. That's what you have to learn with American perspectivism. And changing bodies, therefore I am, much more than I'm looking at the wax and understanding the possibilities of the wax body as a Cartesian. I think we should understand that we are the subject that is the object that is in constant change. So the consistency is change. I mean, you have to be precautious the whole time because you can always be something else. You can always be the caterpillar or the bird or the flower in this struggle for life. Because I think in the end it's a struggle for life. It's a war that is constantly happening between the species, but it's a war that keeps the memory of this evolution. It's an unconscious that is constantly reminding you that you are not only you. That's why the Deleuze Guattari is very important to elaborate on psychoanalysis, and it's important to the philosophical thinking. And Thomas Lamarre is coming here next month, and he proposes that we should think about the physicality of thought. The thoughts are produced in the body. And I don't think Thomas Lamarre says that like out of nothing. I think this is Guattari's, Deleuze's project in what is philosophy. Because they're going to say that the brain is the mind itself. I mean, you think with a brain. It's not about AI. It's about like a living body that thinks. And that everything is constantly thinking. Organic and inorganic. So Guattari is going to say the future should be animistic. I mean, you have to operate in animistic ways of producing thought. And that's how we can say that like a work of art is the production of thought. There is a force in those images of anime that make these people that are dealing with anime want to become what they're seeing. When you think about cosplay, it's a resistance that is there. I mean, you're an adult and you're still playing, but it's not a playing like it's a childish thing. I think it's a transgressive act. I think it's a war machine against the symbolic. It's another possibility of production of life. And then I think it's an animistic way, a perspectivistic way of dealing with images. What happens if these images are stronger than us and then we have to, in a way, become what they are? I just want to have one image appearing there while I talk to you. That is the one from Kawakobore. This came very late in the idea of the project of the book because I was always concerned with how could we invert the possibility of the relationship between language and body that Lacan proposes. So instead of thinking how language would compose bodies, I was very interested in how bodies could compose effects in the symbolic and change language. And then I came across Calpurei in this Runaway from Comme des Garçons. It's a collection that she made in 97 called Body Meets Dress, Dress Meets Body. That is a collection that is only gonna happen when the dress fits or not. By the way, Comme des Garçons, even though you have the name in French, is a Japanese brand. I mean, Rei Kawakubo is a Japanese designer. And she put the name Comme des Garçons because she was very interested in elaborating with France. And this particular collection was presented in Paris in the Paris Fashion Week. It's a collection for 97. That is a very important year with the animes that we are elaborating with. I think those clothes that she makes, that are clothes that are only clothes because there is a meeting, I propose that we should elaborate them as weapons. Weapons in the terms of Deleuze Guattari that are manifestations of forces, manifestations of desires. If we get in the elaborations of the war machine is what makes this striated space of the symbolic a smooth space again. So this smooth space is a space of potentialities, of new things to come.
How do you reconcile your psychoanalytic point of view with the animistic, anthropological, Anthropocene angle, and also immediate theory? What do you think is the element that feeds your work? Is it the media, or it comes from this theoretical standpoint?
I don't know if I can really separate.
Yeah.
When you are listening to a character in a book, or when you're watching a film in the television at your home, you shouldn't separate this physicality here. It's part of the circle of life.
Would you be interested in elaborating on what you think is important about static imagery and this half animation in terms of your work with the unconscious? And you mentioned something about the gaps.
What is important about the compositions of anime as those limited animations that are rich in the gaps, in the in-betweens, is that because they are not going to build to a full illusory way of building a world. If you see, especially old anime, nowadays they don't do that anymore, but old anime is a constant repetition. I mean, it's zoom in, zoom out, repetition, and it's brilliant. And people would say, oh, this is a lesser animation. And then Lamarre said, no, this is what we should be looking at.
Nowadays, people are less tolerant also to very limited animation, as there's a lot of backlash from fans when the studio doesn't have enough time and the limited animation becomes too limited. So there's also not complete acceptance from the part of the viewer, I think.
When you mentioned Lucretius, it really reminds me of The Logic of Sense.
Mm-hmm.
He has one beautiful chapter on Lucretius, and precisely the birth of Chronos. And this break between the ion, or the eternity, the eternal conception of time, with the birth of Chronos as the beginning of chronology, of this sense of a sequence before and an after. And what is interesting is when we kind of think these two models of temporality and put it in moving images. The eternal idea of time and not from chronology, because it's precisely that paradox that you are trying to think, and it's quite difficult to think of an image that has no movement, but at the same time it condenses and has everything inside it, because it's all dimensions, and that is very difficult to think.
Mm-hmm. Fonte did an amazing job editing the book with us. It's beautiful that we close with Fonte, right?
Publication Becoming Press. Becoming Press a publié jusqu'à présent 8 livres, et chacun, on peut le dire, tente de décoder un certain enchevêtrement qui s'inscrit au niveau culturel et philosophique. Psychanalyse, une question télévision. Donc, comment pénétrer le livre de Lucas? Il nous présente un nombre d'éléments. Les films de David Lynch, l'anime Evangelion, Deleuze, Lacan, Guattari, Lamarre. Mais peut-être l'élément le plus radical du livre de Lucas réside dans son diagnostic de multiplanar composition, tel qu'utilisé dans l'animation d'Evangelion. L'Internet cinéma, cinéma Internet, bien que sa définition reste contestée, implique un déploiement des structures, flux et processus inhérents à l'Internet comme des principes d'édition, editing et composition. Le matériel du cinéma Internet est rassemblé, téléchargé, filmé et souvent même édité sur les mêmes smartphones qui nous accompagnent au quotidien.